Now ask her.
Oh, wait.
Ask her now.
Yes. Hey, Sherry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, yay. We're going to call this meeting to order. We want to welcome everybody out to our special board meeting study session. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we'll have our approval of the agenda. We have one change to our agenda. Dr. Susan, do you want to explain the change?
Yeah, we're going to need to reschedule the equity speak up because the individual is unable to attend tonight.
Do we have anyone that would like to take a motion to approve the agenda as amended? I'll make a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. And do we need to take roll call? Maybe we need to
Also,
roll call.
Oh, helpful.
So we'll just hold on that lovely approval of the agenda and do a little roll call.
Yeah, let's do Director Ray,
With absent and excused.
Director Kelly,
Here.
Director Kingman,
Here.
President Levesque,
Here,
Director Knapp here, Student Advisor Schroeder,
absent,
Student Advisor Levon,
absent.
Superintendent Speed.
Here,
Oh,
All right. And it's been moved and seconded to approve the amended agenda.
Director Kelly,
I.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Hey, look at that. Got a lot of time in just a few minutes. Next up, we'll have our welcome and our overview of our learning outcomes by Christina.
so tonight we're going to engage in some learning about our facilities and the needs and the process for developing a master facilities plan. There's Executive Director Brian Lewis will explain more about that in lots of details. We will, as I already mentioned and the board approved, we will not engage in understanding more about the Speak Up, the new Speak Up program, but we'll reschedule that. And we're also going to engage in just some follow-up conversations about the budget information that was shared at the board meeting on Monday, last Monday. And then follow that by just reviewing the components or the table of contents, the outline of what's in our district comprehensive safe schools plan. And that's it.
Right, great. Good overview. So first up, going to be Brian Lewis. And he has a presentation.
Wait, I haven't done very good by bouncing with this.
It says that everyone is in share.
I'll stop sharing.
Kristen.
There. Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay, so for some of you, it's going to be a repeat. Basically, or academic goals. Well, but for some of you, there'll be some new information. So tonight, I'm going to talk about the status of our levy funded projects. Talk about demographics and how that's going to what we're experiencing on the demographic standpoint will be influencing our planning. Oh, about the okay, so we always want to start with the project team for the levy funded projects, because when you think about how long this has been in the works, we started actually in 2015, first iteration. The culmination of that was the election, the February 2020 election. projects. And that got us really started looking. These folks have had a role under Arlington's staff in both bases of the planning and the implementation. Really, we're deeply involved in the station. In addition to school district staff, and on the levy side, actually, grassroots effort to get the levy passed in the community as well. Hired folks include Owen Consulting, our project manager. I do need to say that Fred Owen, who is the principal of Owen Consulting, he will not be with us as a partner on these projects. Sometime in 2023, he's not going to be participating in the projects that you see. He's not saying he's retiring, but he's taking a break. Said he's got stuff. I don't doubt that he's very busy. I see him go. I've learned a lot from him. He's been a great person to work with. But we'll be obtaining professional project management services. And last but not least, the Grand Hand Architects. They've been a real catalyst for our ability to get the work done that I'm about to show you across the time since the Debbie, can you
Let me see
Oh.
what we can do with that.
Wait, I think I have to do that.
put that minus?
There. Now, this.
So this is included in the document that was published with the agenda. This is the list of projects that we have completed or are nearing substantial completion since we began work on this in July of 2020. A lot of work has been accomplished in this period of time. I want to make some comments regarding the projects at Arlington High School. We are continuing to work towards substantial completion, even though we're in the spaces. There is some work that remains to be done. There's some flooring in the hallways that needs to be finished. It's in installation. That is scheduled to occur over the winter break. We're waiting for materials to be happen. So I think it's more of an aspiration that flooring. There's also some gating and fencing, security fencing in the back of the building. Waiting on. That's the area where the old and the new building came together. There's also an issue with the windows that we're dealing with. There is a test that is used as a standard to gauge the ability of the windows to repel water, keep water out of the building. And one of those windows fails. When the contractors one fails, then we can test all tested and make sure that they're going to do what we want to do. When I say fail, is collecting water on the top of the window. If it does that, that's protection for water. Siding. So we're on track to get that testing done over. Projects in process right now. I'll talk in more detail about this. We are finishing the secure entries at Weston, President's, Pioneer, and putting in a new roof, a layer of roofing at the transportation center, updating the electric system The top item on there, lockdown, lockout integration. Throughout all of the instructional buildings located in a secure area, generally in principal's office or in an administrative area where most people don't go. It's more secure. There's a set of buttons. This is what one of the buttons looks like. I couldn't find an image of the other one, but it looks like this, except it's green, doesn't have any writing on it. That's a lockout button. And a lockdown button is paired with each one of these. These are emergency notification devices. So the building needed to initiate a lockout. Somebody in the office can press this button, and anybody in there can press it. And what it does is it uses the access control systems to lock, make sure all the exterior doors are locked. It can't be opened with the car. So we reset the system. It makes an announcement. System. Lockout in process. So, pretty staff. How to initiate a lockout using this system, but staff.
Please explain the difference between lockdown and lockout.
Yep.
When we use that.
So a lockout is for a potential danger outside. A lockdown is for potential danger inside. So we take a completely different posture for each one of those situations. Lockout, yeah, sure all the exterior doors are locked, right now they generally are. If there's, it happens at the beginning or the end of the school day, sometimes the exterior doors are unlocked to allow for free flow passage. But if we're in that situation and the doors are locked, as soon as we start to lock out, pull the blinds, close the classroom, don't necessarily lock it, close the classroom, obscure the view panel. This is an old school view panel. Most of them modern ones are obscure the view panel. Continue teaching. Kids can move between classrooms during the schedule. We don't let if anybody's outside, we bring them in. Generally, don't let people out to lockouts. Lockdown is a different situation. Everything with a lockout, plus gather the kids in the classrooms, lock the door, the classroom. Lights off. Place the kids in a strategic area. This view panel, if you were outside of the door, the reason why view panels are so much smaller now is limits the range of view. So you want to place the kids so that they're outside of that range. So basically, it's described as a pie slice. Like this. So you have kids here. Do that. And then everybody stays quiet until all clear is announced. One administrator comes around.
Will these be part of regular drills?
Yes. We have to do 9 emergency drills per year. 3 of those drills at a minimum have to be a lockdown and evacuation portion. Those are the ones that are mandated by the state. But the frequency with which we do a lockdown drill vary by building. We do at least 1 per year.
I probably should already know this. Is the transportation center that leased building over by the airport?
Mhm.
Were we responsible for all the updates to it, even though it's a leased building? We have to do the maintenance?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the integration of the lockdown buttons is the final piece in the security project. Because the lockdown buttons, not only do they have to be wired to public address system inside of the building, but be connected to our phone system, because they call 911 at the same time. The lockdown button gets pushed. The announcements made in the building, lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. that repeats. It's a block that is retracted, and then 911 is called. So, some of these credits. So there's a lot happening with just that. It's intended to speed the process. The faster we can get building to a lockdown situation, safer.
Every classroom has one.
The buildings don't have, the classrooms don't have the lockdown. The administrative offices. So most of them only have one set. Most of them are right-time secretaries. Arlington High School has 3 sets of lockdown books. It's such a larger building. It's more, there's one right reception desk on the principal's office, on the college. Jesus, assistant principal's offices. So this is scheduled to be done at December. So for the remaining projects that we have, which does not include the fire suppression system at Eagle Creek, we've been delaying that until we figure out what we're going to do. Maybe getting closer. Constructive process. We'll see them get installed. That's not listed on here. But it's, so the remaining projects include site access improvements at Camp Prairie, HVAC controls update at Eagle Creek, at Camp Prairie, and HVAC improvements at Weston High School. The HVAC improvements is not only cooling and ventilation devices, but controls as well. These controls are vital for us in order to be able to control the flow of air, ventilation, heat. If we've got AC, air conditioning, they really are money saving devices, energy management.
I was just wondering, how they sort of, our HVAC systems, how they set up with the smoke. I'm worried that in the next few years, we're going to be seeing more and more smoke instances.
So we'll have to measure the indoor air quality to see what the effect is. But the vast majority of our buildings, as part of the response to COVID, we began using a higher level of filtration, which is the designated, the name that you use to designate the level of filtration is called MERV. I don't know what it stands for. You know what MERV stands for? Okay.
I've heard that.
But prior to COVID, our standard was MERV 11. Following COVID, our standard become MERV 13. The exception of post because the heat pumps really cannot operate. Too much resistance. The size of the particle that we're measuring when it comes to smoke is 2.5 parts per million, or 2.5 microns. And the MERV 13 filters can filter out to 0.8 micron. So theoretically, we're filtering out the particle that is being measured at air quality outside. It's still small inside of the building. That's not the part that is really health endangering. It's part of the stuff you can't see. Right? Doesn't have to stop with that. But we're going to have to start measuring our indoor air quality. There are many things that we have to do regarding our response here because the rules that are provided to us by the Department of Health are not pretty clear as to what we should be doing, that we should be doing it. Our own staff had questions this year. We relied on air quality measurements in Marysville because there's a DOQ and DOE station there. It's calibrated. We don't have a calibrated station. People were asking me, why are we using Marysville? Well, Marysville is the closest DOE station to us. Well, I thought Darrington was closest. Well, Darrington is 24 miles away. Marysville is 11 miles away. So closer. Stations. So our area. And if you look at, there's another map that the Department of Ecology on. Generally, show the bands that always. Very terrible. Where the minimum efficiency reporting them. Oh, obviously.
That makes sense.
So
Okay.
these are the projects that we've got going forward in 23. I'm going to switch gears here and talk about demographics. You'll be seeing this again in January when we start talking about our enrollment for next year. There's two different measurements of student enrollment. This is FTE. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but this is a measurement of how long these students spend with us throughout the course of a year. Head count is really what we're talking about right now. Head count is the total number of people. It would be the maximum people building throughout the day. At elementary level, that maximum is more level across the day. In middle school levels. At the high school level, it fluctuates throughout the day. Because some kids don't go at all. They are to Skill Center or RAP or any of our programs where they're overachievers, they finish their credit requirements early, so they don't have to come right out the day their senior year. Any number of reasons why they're only there for part of the day. But the head count is how many people are in that building. Other things that we look at as far as enrollment, projecting enrollment. There's a reason why I'm talking about projections here, because we're going to be looking at what should we expect for growth across the next 10 years. Births, transitions, construction, births, how many kids are born to families that live within their zip code. We know in the past that 80% of those kids showed up for kindergarten 5 years later. Transitions indicates changes in student population between certain grade levels, like kindergarten 1 and 8 and 9, grades 8 and 9. We tend to have more kids in 9th grade than we did in 8th grade from the prior year. Same with kindergarten first. And more kindergarten first graders showing what we had kindergarten prior year. There's a lot of reasons for that. A lot had to do with extended private schools, family choice. They're ready for their kids to come to the high school, comprehensive high school. And be richer than the program that they was participating in. Construction, there is a relationship between the number of residential units in the community and the number of kids in their student loans. For us, multifamily construction tends to generate 0.2 FTE per year. Single family, a little bit more, 0.3 FTE. So every single family home in the community, 0.3 presence that withdrawal from school. So pandemic now has made a huge influence. In 2021, we contracted with Flow Analytics to do a demographic study. So they did a number of things for us. You may remember the director, district B, Flow was instrumental in that. But we're going to talk about the demographic. This is 2021, prior to what we're experiencing in September of 22 this year, specifically in kindergarten. So some of this data, it's not going to be accurate, but we're going to use it to the best of our ability.
Did we start that in January of 2022?
Oh no,
On the first page.
they generated their enrollment estimate. January. So this shows enrollment per grade by year And we peaked in 2019 with 5,779. I believe that's it. And then drop like a stone. There's another wave on the speed page. It says our current head count is 5,405. So we're back up between 2016 and 2017 as far as head count. We were on quite the trajectory. We were growing very fast. And at that time, I was convinced we were going to need another elementary school. I'm only showing this slide to provide springboard for a discussion about the different amounts you may see presented in the demographic study. And it's the same thing that we provide to you every year when we do our enrollment projection. There's a range, low, medium, high. In this situation, Flo refers to it as high, preferred, and low. So they prefer, they label the medium range as their preferred model or preferred. There is another slide in their document that says preferred, so slide. But you can see they're anticipating a gradual growth over the period, which is through 2031. So we were 21, 22 through 31, so that's 10 years. So we had an earthquake happen. It's basically a Denver. So we estimated in February of last year that we would have about 403 kindergartners in this year. Flo also estimated that we would have 414 kindergartners in this year. We're at 334. So we're way off the mark. This enrollment pattern or enrollment in kindergarten and this year is breaking a 20+ year track record of a relationship between live births and kindergarten enrollments that has been very solid with us. Why is this happening? There are lots of reasons why this is happening. Families are opting for homeschooling, private schooling, or delaying their child's enrollment in kindergarten. And this is not just us. This is happening across the state of Washington. You can see here, common schools enrollment last year declined by 3.7%. I was looking at another article that said kindergarten enrollment was less than budget for the state by 13%. We're not out of the as far as kindergarten enrollment goes. It's gonna, this question that we're grappling with right now is, are these kids that didn't come to school in their kindergarten year, are they going to show up in their first grade year? Are the parents going to enroll them in first grade? Or what we're seeing happening in kindergarten right now, is that going to persist into next year as well? Where we've only got 60% of our live births showing up instead of 80%. We won't know the answer to these questions until next year. And even then, it would just be for that 1 year.
I couldn't remember what, did the last slide show the totals to total enrollment? Or you told us that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what our projection was, if our projection was also high on the total enrollment. Or what because when we were looking at,
We're 70 kids short this year.
okay. I'm just thinking like, what would the ramifications be if we went with the lower projection versus the preferred or however you'd like to say.
We're going to bring you
A recommend-
Okay.
First meeting in January.
Okay, perfect.
For next year.
I'll wait.
Because we moved normally we would have the board look and approve the enrollment projection in February,
Okay.
but we've moved it to the last January board meeting. So we need to do this pre-work, and then this first board meeting in January, really grapple with it and then be ready for a decision, the board.
This must be slide. So, yes.
So we learned for growth model.
Third slide.
Tis true.
So I
Tis true.
did share with you the demographic study. I believe it's attached to, was it attached to the board plate? Or did I send that to?
Agenda. For that.
Okay. So that all feeds into our master facilities process, planning process. It's not the only component of the master facilities planning process. There's 3 different areas that will be considered in that process. Maintenance and major system upgrades and replacements, functional improvements, and growth. For the maintenance and major systems upgrades, we're looking at a 30-year period. What do we need to do over the next 30 years? How many roofs do we need to replace? How many HVAC systems? Even though we're doing HVAC work now, that's not going to cover us for the next 30 years. We're still going to need to keep things done. Then we're looking at a 10-year period for the growth-related projects. Yes, Mary?
I should probably know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask a stupid question, just for fun. When we have to fix a building or do like basic maintenance, does that come out of the general fund, or do we have to always ask the voters for little funds?
We have money that we can transfer out of the general fund to the capital projects fund. Then we don't have to go to the voters. If we need funding, then we need to go to the voters and ask them for help on that. For funding on that. Generally, what distinguishes between, and I need to maybe talk with Chris about using a different word here, because the distinction between maintenance and a system replacement is that we generally expect a functional improvement with a system replacement. More so than we would just for maintain. So if we have to replace a roof on a building, then we're going to make sure that we get better ventilation out of that roof or a longer life of the system that we replace. It's pretty easy to do with new systems. It's the changes in technology that occur, the way engineers and designers think about something like a roof system or an HVAC system. We can make a case that it's a capital project that merits that. And then the last item, the last bucket we're looking at is functional improvements. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about functional improvements tonight. Chris Lilly is working with Carrie Henderson-Berg and the building principals about gathering data on what functional improvements the building. The functional improvement is what is the building not doing for you for your educational program? How can we improve the delivery of educational services without building a new building? So one of the reasons is influencing this need for what Chris calls maintenance projects is the age of our buildings. You can see we've got some fairly our buildings are aging. We're making improvements to them, but there are systems that need to be addressed inside of these buildings. Talk about some of those systems. And then obscured behind this little block here is a notation for Clean Buildings Act. Clean Buildings Act was made law last year by the legislature, and what it requires of us is to measure our buildings electrical energy efficiency and establish a baseline of operations and make improvements to that baseline.
Every year, right?
I'm not sure the frequent, I think it's over a 5-year period because there's a, if we don't make these improvements, well, first of all, if we don't create the baseline, measure the baseline, then we're subjected to a fine on the square footage. So, for example, the large building created by Arlington High School with work there on this, you'd be subject to a fine of about $300,000. Given the range of our buildings, only one building is falls outside of that range of fines too, yes. Weston and SPLC, but every other building is a square footage enough to generate a fine for us if we don't take action. That fine occurs every 5 years. So we've got a 5-year period. Each measurement period is over a 5-year period. So we do need to make efficiency improvements during that 5-year period, remeasure, establish a new baseline. And that just that cycle iterates itself until efficiency improvements right now. The control systems we're installing at Camp Prairie, at Eagle Creek, we will be installing, will help us meet those efficiencies. I'll be bringing a contract proposal to you in January to the board to contract control systems. This is just an idea of the kinds of projects that need to be done at each school building. It's not complete yet. You see word figure, clock system, Camp Prairie. Exterior walls, failing, Pioneer. If you walk around the building, you see it.
What does that mean, failing?
The siding may need to be replaced, insulation, or vapor barrier need to be replaced. This is not a cheap thing at all.
But the building's not falling down.
Yeah.
President's exterior walls showing signs of water intrusion and thermal bridging. You can see this if you walk outside of the building. You can see the outline of the steel frame behind on the other side of the exterior of the siding. My office faces that wall. I see it every day, driving me crazy. But we're gonna have to do something. Holler of note, the stadium is unsafe. We've got it blocked off with portable fencing right now, so we can't access it. Trying to figure out what we're going to do with it.
How old is that stadium seating?
I don't know, but we did replace 2 light poles there recently, and they were installed in 1994.
Okay, around that then probably.
Visitor sign was built probably in the 70s, 37, late 60s. And then the rest was built. But those were the first, it's about 50.
That was included in the bond proposal. Well, to replace that stadium seating. Post, and this is like the understatement of the century, building in general is past its useful life. I'm not going to go into the details of post right now. We'll provide those for you. Arlington High School, the re-roof, shop, CTE shop building, there's a metal building behind the main building. Painting this turf field stadium is getting close to the end of its expected life. It's in good shape. It's just been around for a long time.
Didn't we just do the track?
What's that?
Didn't we just do the track?
We did the track this year, yeah.
And how old is that turf field? Didn't the Seahawks do something after?
Older than the track.
Wasn't there a special thing after the Oakland side?
Well, I mean,
There was some special thing.
We replaced the grass with dirt.
Oh, okay.
But that doesn't last forever.
No,
10 years.
So
Yeah,
then
and
they'll
lifespan.
extend. Mhm.
Weston, there's some things that you can't see, like joints between the exterior wall panels. That building is tilt-up concrete panel construction. Poured concrete panels on the ground, tilt them up with cranes, and basically super glue them together onto the steel frame. Some exterior windows are starting to fail. We're doing HVAC work out there this year. SVLC, they need some paint, campus lighting not adequate, but they're not there to dark, you know that. Ramps need to be replaced, which are not cheap, and we may need to reroute some of the buildings. We've been doing roofing there as well. and correct me if I'm wrong, but every building that we re-roofed, we put a gable roof over the landing. So that the front door area is kept dry. Transportation center will take care of that right now. Roosevelt Building, that's this building. I would get rid of this word potentially.
I saw a bunch of fans that one time after a nice rainstorm.
The hatch blew off.
Oh,
It was so windy that day. There's an access hatch to the roof. And it blew off and water came in.
What about the lift?
That, Graham doesn't know about that yet.
Okay, okay.
did you get it working?
No. Yeah. So we may be able to take care of that one, but
That's right.
we may go get some.
So we wouldn't be ADA compliant if somebody needs to come to this meeting tonight.
We would probably, in the meantime, because we would need to maybe move these downstairs to Washington so that a wheelchair access could come through the custodial room.
Is there a ramp down there?
It's not ideal, but it's better than trying to get someone up the stairs.
Or we would have to move it to like.
Right, right.
And then the A building, exterior paint, yeah, I mean, this is just a short list, you know, there's many more problems. Potentially needs a re-roof, that.
Potentially,
Yeah, it extends to, an area skylight that's on that roof, it's a steel structure. It's got rust on it. It's gonna be, right now we've got it covered, protected, correct? And, it's likely going to be replaced, the whole skylight structure. Along with the roof. French house, this is the house next door to the A building on French Street. We've used this for the transition program in the past. We still use it for that, but the transition is going to be located to the west campus this year. There's some work that needs to be done there.
is the French house can be used for anything else like that?
No,
Except the transition go there to learn where they do the cooking and the house type.
Big is that? So,
oh, it's like 500 square.
Huh.
Very big. Yeah, I mean, back in 1930 or 40, when we built it, was palace, but it's not. It's very small. Growth projects, I've already spoken with you about the effect the pandemic had on our student population. I'm gonna skip right to, not go through all the different forms, the input to the population. But suffice to say, we're gonna be beyond capacity at Eagle Creek and Pioneer by the time we get to the end of the study period by 2031. But Kent Prairie and Presidents are not, they're not sharing that. There's additional capacity at those buildings.
And when we say capacity, it means we are using every corner, every instructional space, even if it's smaller than a regular
Eagle
classroom.
Creek is stretched as it is right now. Eagle Creek is also a little bit different because we've got an EDP program house, portables there. We have been collecting impact fees that could be used to purchase portables for Eagle Creek to relieve the overcrowding that we think is going to happen at that building. And those portables, prior to this master facilities planning process, we did a portable feasibility study for all of our elementary campuses and identified locations where could we place a portable on that campus, where was the water and sewer and electrical connections. So we were trying to figure that out. We were placing portables. We know where all that stuff is now. And we know that if we were to place portables at Eagle Creek, the best location to place them, to access that stuff.
How feasible is it to move portable? Like if Kent Prairie doesn't need as much space to move them to Creek, that possible?
It's possible. Doesn't happen a lot.
But because we put those portables there at Kent Prairie, the newest ones, it's helping for their capacity.
Yeah, that
So-
capacity.
Would be easier to move the students than the building.
Sorry, what?
Is it easier to move the student than the building? Boundary change versus
Well,
portable,
physically easier, yes. Politically,
No,
no. But, you know, let's talk about Eagle Creek and Pioneer. So Eagle Creek, we can resolve this problem with portables that we collected money for from developers intended to relieve overcrowding situations based on growth, which is what we think is going to happen at Eagle Creek. Same situation at Pioneer. The problem with Pioneer is the site is so constrained and the access to utilities is so difficult that we can only fit 2 single portable buildings. Single, when I say single, I mean 1 classroom at Pioneer. And one of them would be right up against the building. And the other one would be 150 feet away from the building. So there would be quite a distance to travel. This gets concerning because of security issues and access to programs that occur inside of the building. This will not be I would not recommend installing portables at Pioneer. Pioneer shares a boundary with Camp Prairie. Pioneer has an apartment complex on 204th that's not yet completed. And if we were to theoretically move the attendance area from Pioneer to the west to 67, then we may be able to resolve the capacity issue with Pioneer by reassigning those students to Camp Prairie.
Can't Prairie hold any more portables?
Camp Prairie can hold 53 more kids.
Okay.
Pioneer's gonna be 51 kids.
Yeah. And there can be more portables at,
Yes, there's space for more portables.
Mhm.
if we're pushing more kids into Eagle Creek and Camp Prairie, and those buildings have a larger number of students in them, and there's less students at Pioneer and Presidents, then they both feed into middle schools, and Eagle Creek and Camp Prairie would swell the number of students that Post and Pioneer Presidents would not overcrowd ours.
That's right.
That kind of, if we have a new Post middle school, of course, that'd be lovely, because there would be lots of extra room in a new Post middle school. But if we don't, that would be problematic.
Let's look at the middle schools. Okay. So using the same demographic study, we can see that Haller is anticipated to be over capacity at the end of the study period by 96 students. And Post, given the current capacity of the building, will have excess capacity of 83 students. So
So wouldn't it be a problem?
no. I mean, we have all the if we don't replace Post, we still have all the problems we have with that building. But it's the whole. I don't want to back up and talk about Camp Prairie for a minute, or the elementary buildings, or any building actually. Is the portables can only resolve the problem for so long. Because there's core services and functions inside of the building, like the food service, the library, gymnasium, any specialist programs like art and music. They can only handle so many kids total inside. At one point, Camp Prairie had 900 kids, right?
That's about the same time that Post had like 800 kids.
Well, they moved the 6th grade from Camp Prairie to Post. More or less the Post back to Post. That's what we had. So, the temporary. I don't know, there's 5 classes.
What do portables do when there's a lockout or a lockdown? Because they're not part of the big system that completely locks down.
They lock their doors.
They just, yeah, okay. I mean, not just, but they lock, okay.
Yeah, they want to lock out the same way that the rest of
Okay.
them does.
They're mostly locked anyway, so there's not much changes to them.
Yes, they should be locked. Portables, again, if they're dry, or even if they're not, if they're When I say dry, I mean they don't have water. Say wet, I mean they have water in the bathroom. Even if they don't, even if they do have water in the bathroom, in them, portables can become a security issue because if you leave the door locked, but then there's kids going in and out of the door to get inside of the door. Therapy services, other kinds of reasons. Don't see the principal. And then they're coming back. So teacher has to manage that. Keep it unlocked. Give them a code that they can use to open the door. Change that every year. There's ways to do it, but it can be disruptive if kids are going in and out of the classroom. Same way that you have these posts. Have a way to secure the exterior. Oh, good news. At the high school level, with the addition of the classrooms and the scene shop, we have excess capacity in both Weston and Arlington High School. So our high school problem is solved at least through the 10-year study period, which it wasn't before. We're looking at having, I think we're about 100 over capacity the last time we measured this. Yeah, there were 100 kids over. It was really packed. It was packed inside. So when we're done with the master facilities plan, which we expect to be finalized in March, the facilities advisory committee will begin discussions about finances. So when we come to the board in August of this year, we're going to have a recommendation of the superintendent for both financing and facilities changes. Whether that means new buildings or updates to the buildings that we've got, or maintenance, what McGranahan calls maintenance projects, we'll have that incorporated into the master facilities plan. So through August, November, that's the time for the board to consider funding questions for a February ballot, February 24 ballot. The last day to file a resolution calling for an election was December 15th, 23, and then election day on February 13th, 24. That's the presentation.
We've paid an outside company to help us market that particular bond, or was that for something else?
Which bond was that?
Didn't we pay like 20 or 40 grand to some company to help us?
Yeah,
Is that part of this or is that separate
that's separate.
effort? Okay.
Yeah, we're working with strategies right now on understanding the voter sentiment here in the county and doing demographic studies about voters. Because we had all that information last time we went to voters in 2020. We have done the same thing. Demographic study for voters and opinion surveys as well. Help us to understand what we should or should not bring or maybe even expect with voter question to voters. So they'll be working with us over the next year and a half.
And they've been working with us. The survey that just went out for the district, that's a result of working with them.
It closed today, Friday.
Last Friday.
So if you've seen social media postings with the Arlington School District Facebook marker saying share your opinion, that has been the survey and strategies. On Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and our own webpage and communications.
I have regarding planning that you're doing like the 10 to 30 years out. I'm just wondering how much of the planning is part of it is using renewable resources, environmental friendly practices, and taking like that, like how much can you plan for that?
Wow.
Or are you?
There are standards that we have to meet
Yeah.
that the state defines for us. For example, the addition at Arlington High School has to be a minimum, a designation called LEED Silver, which defines the energy efficiency. We're meeting that. So that's the standard. We're not making any kind of assumptions about additions, solar energy systems or geothermal systems.
We're not required to, but could we? I know they're expensive, though, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on voters. We did install a solar system in Creek 3 years ago. It's been great. There's a solar system. that the state-
The Tesla Facility Advisory Committee looked to expanding our preschool and thinking for early learning opportunities available in regular.
K-12.
But the instructional and learning department has been talking about those kinds of things, like how could there be, not somewhat related to facilities, but how could we do like some changes with our early learning?
It's really nice. Instructional, early education, skill, something, maybe, like Valley Terrace, like Fox that. Preschoolers, well, they taught the high school students how to be preschool teachers while they were hosting preschool.
Where is this at, Mary?
Yeah.
We had a child care program. Instruction. Child care. Students, kids, teachers. And we're, what do you think?
Yeah, it's, students have.
We have to.
Take it off.
Might be easier to find more kindergartners. If you have better preschool.
We're also, yeah, there's also what's called transitional kindergarten, which is for those that are not quite yet kindergarten age, but they have a year before they turn kindergarten age. It's called transitional kindergarten. So there's discussion about that.
Part of it is always, next on the agenda, it says brief break, but if that's okay, we can skip the break and pushing through. Next up is our financial information follow-up on our budget. That's 22-23, and this by Gina Dutenhorst, our executive director of financial services. And you have your screen. You're ready to go.
Okay, ready. I guess there was a question, well, this is time that if you have questions from looking at our previous presentations that can post those and now. And I wanted to follow up because Sherry had a question about the financial indicators tool and kind of what factors were calculating that. And so I could share my screen really.
I'm going to stop sharing then. Okay, it's all yours.
Pull up that file.
Yes, she is. Is it the top one you're trying to share, Gina?
Yeah. Then stop share and then go back. Then I'll be. So. What we saw. in The budget. Financial highlights of current budget. Is this chart right here. And so some of the questions that were coming out were the zero score on the days of cash on hand and how that was calculated. And then kind of like the change between 2021 and 21-22, because the 0.30, it didn't change very much. And was that correct? And so, and it's all right. I went back and looked. First, I'll just show you the calculation of the average cash. It is taking the average monthly cash balance. And then it's also looking at total expenditures divided by 60. And then you divide A divided by B to get the value of the cash on hand. And then it has been weighted so that whatever score we get for cash on hand, but if it meets a certain level, then we get 4 points. If it meets a lesser level, then we get less points. So that is about that.
But that's not really where we're getting seen. It was lower 27. That days cash on hand on 5.
Days of cash on hand. Well, during 2015-16,
We still had a pretty nice little 3.1 in there. I think we're getting things from other prior rows. Beautiful spreadsheet.
that one's ugly, this one's ugly. That one I didn't calculate, don't have how they calculate those that far back. That was published by OSPI. So whatever they were using,
But the biggest difference is that fund balance to run ownership, expenditures to run. Was brought down significantly.
Right. So 32 and 33. They're going to.
trying to see numbers calculations. There. So cash on hand, back in 2015-16 was only 7 million on average. And expenditures per day, 165. So however that scored, it gave us a 1. And then those are then weighted. They're weighted. So we got a 1 on that, then it's like the cash on hand is meaning that only 20% of your overall score. Does that make sense? Kind of like how when you're looking at your students' grades in Skyward, you'll have all the scores, but it'll say you got 100% in the section, but it's only 20% of your grade. But it's doing the same thing with this. So if we got the 100%, which is the highest score, which is 4 on any one of those categories, it still weights that, so it doesn't get anything.
Yeah, like column J, column K, there's a difference. One is lower, right? One is less, like it got down a little further down. So look at it. See how it's 1 and it's 47.35 for the days cash on hand, but then in the next box over it's 67, 64, and it's 3. So is 1 bad and 3 is good?
Yes.
Yeah,
One is
the
bad
high-
and 3 is good.
Thank you.
Yes, you see that jump there. The average monthly cash on hand is.
So it's kind of like rates and.
Yeah, and then it jumped up.
Yeah, four exceeds and 3 is it meeting
We like
standard.
fours,
We like fours.
okay.
Like fours.
But zeros are, no, we don't.
We're having zero, though, right?
Well, not on this, except for, I don't know, back on that
Oh,
other
okay,
page.
so, yeah. Down here when it got weighted.
See, there was one that said 0
On
under cash on hand. On cash on hand, it was 0.
It's on your projection tab.
See right there.
Okay,
Oh,
then
okay.
that would not, let's see. Sorry about that. So
That's a lot of spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Is this a look inside your brain?
So it should have been 5. I don't know why it's there as 0. Because I copied this chart.
Yeah, because it would seem strange to be 0, 0.
Yeah,
Well, that puts it up to 2.25 instead of,
But that's not looking at next year, so.
well, see,
oh, I'm
It-
looking on the wrong tab.
Oh,
There's
not
the
zero.
There. Oh, that's why I have so many tabs. That's the point, that's 0. There's-
why don't,
Yeah. There.
There.
right there.
Well, it's an estimate, right?
Yeah. That's the cash on hand. But
Yeah,
Because it fund balance is so much smaller.
I think we just hit below the level at which it gives you no score. So you're in the projection, the numbers that I've seen. But those will change. Just here, so I don't actually have.
Gina, there's,
This tool is available on this guy's website. All this data is part of it. It's only the 21, 22, 23 columns where I am recreating the calculations that they've done previous years to project.
are
But all
the,
of these past ones, these are published in online by this.
but they're based on the actual,
They're based.
so
on
that's
actual.
the difference.
So if our fund balance is not at 6 million, it's higher than maybe we're not at 0.
Maybe, but let's just take a quick look at that. Well, there, didn't.
Go for it.
Did it? Nope. Not a lot. You cheated.
I still see a 0.
But that's the cash on hand. This is just the
Oh.
fund balance piece.
Oh,
That's what I get to play with. So I just wanted to honor.
Like a little what if calculator.
Yes.
If we do really well on this test, then our grade will be there.
if we can just do
Sherry.
that.
Sherry, did that answer your question?
It helped, I think. Yeah, there's so much information, Gina. I know, I trust you. And I think whenever you're meeting with us and providing the most simplistic, in layman's terms explanation, it really helps me because this is not my forte. So I just appreciate when you're able to bring it to us and kind of, put it in something that makes sense. That's just as helpful as I can ask you to be. So I appreciate that you made the effort. Right now, there's just a lot of information on here. And I just, for me, I'm just kind of monitoring the change in value of the different numbers and seeing what was cash on hand and how that's fluctuated with expenses keep going up compared to, I think, whatever that row 20 is. Anyway, yes, you've done a great job and I look forward to a continued explanation from you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we'll be looking at them. So, good luck to you. Then. What else was I?
I had a separate question, not related to that monthly formula. But usually about this time of year, we talk about the Merle McGuire Mayo Scholarship, and we have to make a decision about some things. Can you explain
Yeah,
to the board what that is? What we have to do?
Yeah, I've been looking about that, like you say, it's coming up. It's just tough work. So for the two scholarships, the Lloyd Williams is the smaller of the two. It has about $200, $280 that would be available to award as a scholarship. That one's usually pretty cut and dried as one or two, you know, how many there are. But the Merle, you know, how much money there is. But the Merle Mayo one is a big one. $2.5 million is on hand that must be held intact. It's the interest earnings. So this year, there is $22,000 available to be awarded in scholarships through, we do that with Arlington Dollars for Scholars, but the board has typically had some thoughts and input around what denominations and how many scholarships to provide. And there is a history of providing at least one scholarship that's repeated. So 4 years renewable. And so if the person receives that award, they've typically got anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a year for 4 years. And then the other singular scholarships that made up the balance of whatever was left to award was somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000, depending. Last year, it was a really small dollar amount compared to typical years, and that was just evidence of what the economy was doing, and that interest rates were really poor. But we're a little better off this year than. So
What did we do last year?
last year we did one-time scholarships at $2,200 each. 2,200. And then we did one reoccurring at the rate of 2,000 over 4 years. So if that is a repeat recurring thing, to do that for one person, it costs $8,000.
And then how much do you have this year?
22,000. So, as a possibility, if the board did one renewable scholarship at the $2,000 rate, that would be 8,000. And then there would be room for 7 more scholarships at $2,000 each to make up that 22,000.
And this,
That's where you might think is whether you wanted to make the renewable annual scholarship a greater dollar amount, or whether you wanted to do more of them, or whether you wanted to have impact more students, but just on.
When will we vote on this?
in December.
Oh, that's-
I'll get our next regular meeting.
Right.
And so I would probably propose for you, but you can maybe come up with some improvements too. It's nice to get her approved in December, because then in January we can actually issue the warrant. It's a little their process. Yeah. But there, the 7 at $2,000 and then one renewable scholarship, that's 8 students that would be touched by the rule.
And it's 22,000 even, no
22,000 even.
change.
And it just kind of keep it.
Right, anybody else have any further follow-up budget plans?
Thank you.
Next up is going to be a review of our district comprehensive safe school program outline. Brian, that actually.
So you each should have a copy of the outline, or basically the table of contents. This book, and thank you to Debbie, looks much nicer than it did. I mean, it has our current logo. This has what's on your table of contents that you see. That's in this book. The sections 3 and beyond are not the public view, because those are our safety plans. Those are the ones that we hold tight to the vest that we don't share publicly. So section 1, we pulled out the policies that, and there's many policies that talk about safety and those kinds of things, but these are very specific to emergency planning and safe school planning. And then section 2 is the COOP plan, the continuity of operation plan, which the board actually reviewed. They've done it twice now, but they just recently did that in August. The idea of that is that if we were to have a situation where we couldn't have students come into the schools to learn, then what would be our approach to continuity of operation, which it outlines for individuals, for schools, and for the district, and it has to do with moving to remote online learning. So there's this comprehensive safe schools plan, or the book. It's what I'd like to do is on a regular basis, like annually, that we just bring back the table of contents, and let you know what's in there. Maybe share if there have been some updates, because the updates happen, it's ongoing. As we make a certain adjustments, so we do after action debriefs, and then we tweak some things. So there is an ongoing, and the heart of this would be online, or at least it's electronic. So we make those changes, and then I just kind of make them on a spec copy. There is an OSBI survey that's coming out that I have to respond to by December 19th. And it's related to our plan. And so there's an RCW, that's RCW 28A 320 125, which was in the board packet. It talks about what's required to be in our comprehensive safe schools plan. So we're making sure that we have those components in our plan. So just letting you know. And so what we would do, I'm gonna ask any questions from Ed and Brian, because they do lead the process, like the eMart that we have, and they kind of make this happen, but we all have that responsibility. But on the December 12th meeting, it would come to the agenda, not this book. We're not going to publicize the book, but the outline of what's in the book. The COOP plan is public, so that already has been made public, but not the rest. Brian or Ed, would you like to add anything to these comprehensive safe school plans or plan?
We do review the components and update them as able. For example, we updated the lockdown and lockout protocol in 2019. Bringing these protocols to date.
Does every school have a book? It's the same.
We also have access to the rapid responder.
Yeah, so the schools have a book, and then within rapid responder, there are electronic copies of some of the protocols. Lockout, evacuation. The ones that are most likely dealing with most. Also within rapid responder, there are maps of the school buildings and locations of utility cutoffs. Or other information. We also record our drills in rapid responder because we're required to do that.
And there's a representative from every school building. I'm not sure about if there's a representative from each site, but every school is represented on eMart. And that they work through this.
The active shooter is a subcategory of one of these that are listed.
Lockdown.
So I just wanted the board to be aware of this. And, so what's going to be I'm not sure exactly how others do this, but I just figured that if you're aware and understand this actual plan, I think formally was adopted in like 2012. We tried to, Board Docs doesn't go back quite that far, but there was a notation in it that it said 2012, but I know it's probably been around before that, but the original one that or at least this one said 2012. So we'll put that as the original adoption. And now we would just say that the board's reviewed the outline for the 2 bulk contracts. So that was the original 2012. Thank you.
Is there anything in the RCW that we're missing?
I've gone through it with a pretty, that what's on, what's hard on here. It says each school district shall adopt and implement a safe schools plan. Well, we'd already done that. And so, okay, but then when I looked at the survey ahead of time, it said, did the superintendent sign off? Did the board sign off? Well, when you look back in 2012, I don't see a signature. That's why I wanted you to review it. And we should do that annually. It's just review it annually. So, and so the sheet that, we'll sign after the board meeting on the 12th will just say that we reviewed it, just reviewed the outline. It'll just be very clear of that way, because we are going to make revisions to this. There's revisions that happen in Rapid Responder. There's notations that take place in Rapid Responder. Now, the next time we'll review this, it's going to be short a year because I'm going to bring it back every August. I feel that every August we have to do the COOP plan every August for the minimum basic hours, instructional hours. So we'll do this again in August. That's what I have. Yes. It just wasn't put together. Okay. Right, that's what I have for tonight.
We reached the end of our agenda. Remind you that there's a farming more month of December this year. Next Monday, December 12th, 22. Right downstairs, we'll talk about the month of St. David, 6 p.m.
Second.
That was seconded. Sure. Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Lebeck. Aye. Director Young. Right, meeting adjourned. Everybody drive safe. So Brian will be watching forever.
Clear skies.
It's bad.
Brian's happier on clear days.